Welcome to the Elk Season Podcast, Season 3, Episode 29. Today is December 5th, 2024. We are 267 days. No?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't believe.
You're shaking your head like I was wrong.
I can't believe how time's going to go by. Because before long, we're going to be on the episode of the next season that says next week, we're out in elk country.
Yeah.
But
267 days till Elk Season. We are the Chambers Brothers. My name's Harold.
I'm David.
And tonight on the Elk Season Podcast.
Yeah. Tags are going on sale for a certain demographic. We'll talk about that. Grizzly Confidential has been an ongoing conversation for the last couple podcasts. Let's see what happens to bears on holiday in Florida. Not really on holiday. Let it snow in Utah. Buffalo salt. What does that mean?
Yeah.
The whole point of these headlines. What does it all mean?
Buffalo salt. You're going to want to stick around for that one.
Yes. You don't want to miss that shake. Endangered elk to roam free.
Really?
Endangered elk?
Endangered.
Yeah, and then free meat costs how much?
Yeah, we'll see.
All that and more on the podcast. Oh my gosh, on Elk Season.
All that and a baffled intro tonight on Elk Season.
Just keep it consistent. If I don't screw up at least once in the intro, I haven't done my job.
Oh yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, intros are hard.
I mean, and it's all scripted. I've rehearsed it, but I still can't. I'm not using a good mark. I should use a pen or something. I can't read my own writing. It's faint.
Yeah. There's a reason cue cards are giant.
Yeah.
Right? And behind
there's only
the camera.
3 words on it.
And behind the camera, so you can just be reading, but you think you're looking at the camera. I'm just reading.
So you were an intern. Yeah, what'd you do? I wrote cue cards. It was an unpaid, but I did it. I loved it.
Yeah, I love the smell of marker. Anytime you're using a magic marker that much, you're going to get high. You're going to get a little bit high.
Sharpie.
All right. We have a very important special message for an elk hunter, a non-Idaho resident, a non-resident.
So, this is a special message for all non-Idaho elk hunters, but one in particular. Sorry to cut you off. Jared
Fleury.
We talk about him quite a bit here.
My dear friend from Montana, 100%. He's a Marine Corps combat veteran. Okay, and he loves hunting elk, and we love hunting with him. And December 10th at 10 a.m. Not at 10:02.
No, 10 a.
Not at a quarter after. December 10th at 10 a.m. Non-resident elk tags go on sale in Idaho. That's a special message for you.
Get it done, buddy. We want to see you.
I want to go hunting with him again. He always says, "Oh, I don't need a tag and come down." Then something happens and he doesn't get to come down. And even when he has a tag,
I know
it's hard to get him down here. It's a long way, and he's got a lot at home. So, and I feel bad because here we are in Idaho. We should have our fingers on the pulse.
I know.
And he's like, "Hey, when do those tags go on sale?"
December 10th, buddy.
10 a.m. December 10th at 10 a.m. I set an alarm in my phone. I'll call him and text him in the days leading up to it. It's only 5 days away.
It's pretty close.
So yeah, we're talking about elk in December for 2025 because non-resident elk tags go on sale this. What would that be? Next Tuesday?
Yes. No. I don't know. Monday, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday. Anyway, because I think 6, 7, 8, 9. My son's birthday, my daughter's birthday's tomorrow. My son's birthday's on Monday.
Now I gotta cheat.
His birthday's on the 9th. You want to look at a calendar? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up and just look. Oh, the 10th is Tuesday. You were correct. I just had to look to make sure my brain didn't hurt anymore.
Sure. So, Tuesday the 10th at 10.
Tuesday at 10.
Tuesday the 10th at 10.
A.M.
In the morning. A.M. in the morning. I don't mind being redundant.
No.
Tuesday at 10 a.m.
December 10th.
All right. So there we go. We've talked about elk already. Now, can we please move on?
We can move. Let's go to Grizzly Confidential. You've been reading this book. You've been talking about it for weeks, and you seemed really excited. And so I just want to warn everybody, we might not get to anything else on our list based on the excitement that he shared with me about what he wants to talk about.
I am only
today.
1/3 the way through this book.
That's where you were last time. I'm just kidding.
Oh, and I've learned some things. I've learned the difference between a brown bear and a grizzly.
Okay.
And I've always been curious about this.
I am now curious.
I don't know why I didn't know the difference, but people just address them as different.
Yeah.
Although grizzly bears and brown bears are genetically the same.
Okay.
Right? There's no discernible. They can interbreed.
Okay.
Right? There's no discernible difference. The only difference is in their habitat, and brown bears have access to the ocean.
Oh.
Right? A lot of dead things wash up on shore. And so brown bears, especially in Alaska, and Alaska's interior might have grizzlies, but the coasts have brown bears. I mean, obviously they're the same, but the resources that they eat are different.
Okay.
Are very different.
Okay. Like Kodiak grizzlies, though, have access to the ocean, but we call them Kodiak grizzlies.
Kodiaks are actually a different subspecies of grizzly bear, and he went over the Kodiak, and they are the largest. The Kodiaks are really, really big.
So if you have brown bear versus grizzly bear, my brain had actually pointed the finger at black bears because you can have brown black bears.
You can. And
So
you can
I
have
just
black
figured-
grizzlies, and you can have the hybridization zone of polar bears and grizzlies too.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a mix.
Yeah. It's a fascinating world.
Yeah.
I think we need to get some better language, though, so it's not as confusing.
Well, every book I read, it unconfuses it a little bit more, and we'll keep moving and learning. That's what the podcast is all about, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to learn as much as we can, and so the difference too, I would say, with interior bears is, I don't want to pigeonhole this, is they're grumpier, right? You have fewer calories. If bears are ruled by their stomachs,
right,
and there's plenty of food, then everybody's happy. This is why the guys fishing for salmon, right, don't get attacked by bears. They're not gutting the fish there. They're not throwing the guts. They're not making it a meal for the bears. The bears have plenty to eat. So, but there's not that access to that many calories in the interior, and so a bear would be a lot more defensive of calories in the interior.
That makes sense.
So, but this guy comes from the east. He comes from east of the Mississippi. I don't remember exactly where. The author of Grizzly Confidential. He knew he wanted to work with grizzly bears, just fascinated by them.
Okay.
And went to college, got a degree, came out west, lived in Jackson Hole, and started going through this process. And again, this book was published last year or in September. It was published in 2024.
Oh,
Grizzly Confidential was. So he talks about some of his own and what I see as incredibly misguided fears of grizzly bears. But then there's some incredible insight because he talked about Bart.
Okay.
Do you remember Bart the bear?
I do, kind of.
From the movie,
Yes.
The Bear.
Yes.
He talked about grizzly bears in movies.
Okay.
Because it's a big part of how we understand them. And Bart was in Legends of the Fall.
Yeah, yep.
He's almost anywhere you've seen a
Bart was very popular in the 90s for Hollywood.
Yeah, and those guys live in Utah. And
in fact, when I was in grade school, one of the people, I don't know who it was, but they didn't bring Bart to the grade school, but somebody representing Bart came and talked to my school. Yeah. And showed pictures on the screen and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the handler but it was somebody that had a direct connection to Bart.
Oh, that's cool.
I was way young.
And so that Bart lived at this in a refuge. They actually gave a pretty good backstory of what happened to Bart's mom and how he ended up here. I don't remember that. It's a great book, Grizzly Confidential. Please go read it. But they also talked about a little more unscrupulous types of bear owners. Because unfortunately, in the land of the free, we're dealing with bear owners. And I'm at a part of the book right now where it's addressing Yellowstone Bear World. Okay. Which is a bear mill.
Yes.
They're there. It's a drive-through bear exhibit. You can drive your own car through, and you can feed the bears.
I've driven past it many times because I've driven through there for jobs.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered because in my mind, with all due respect, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
But you continue. You were talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really like seeing captive animals that much at all. especially not in a, zoos are typically a little bit more learning centered.
Right.
And this is just profit centered.
Yeah.
And so they've actually sold bears from Yellowstone Bear World to Joe Exotic.
Wow.
If you know who that is.
All right.
What was that? The 2020, it was called the Tiger King.
Tiger King.
Yeah. And did you watch the Tiger King?
I watched most of it. I can't remember how it ended. I really don't.
Well, he's in prison,
Yeah.
but that's how it started. You have a collect call from the correctional facility.
How many times have you watched this?
But in the series, the original director, Joe Exotic, and he had all this footage, all this stuff archived in this one room on Joe Exotic's compound, and one night that entire room went up in flames.
Oh wow!
And in that, the director or the guy who'd collected all this footage talked about how he fell and wept because he had so much footage. And he talked about this clip of a woman bringing her horse out to all these acres that Joe Exotic has, to this refuge. And he says, hey, he's an old horse. He just needs to wander out and graze. And he needs, he just needs a place to go. And she says, don't worry, ma'am. We'll take good care of him. And the director, this guy who collected all this footage, goes, she wasn't even off his property when he pulled out his gun. He always had a gun, and he shot that horse
and fed it to the tigers.
He goes, that dumb lady, she's got 400 pounds of tiger food here. Thank you. I mean, just no scruples at all.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we have this mirrored in Yellowstone Bear World. And I told you I've held baby black bears before.
I don't remember.
It was Yellowstone Bear World.
Oh wow!
And my wife has a brother who has a wife who has a friend who lives over there and ended up working, helping with the cubs. And so they had some cubs, I think 7 or 8 black bear cubs, and they said, you can come over, just don't post any pictures. And I go, well, that's respectful, right? I go, okay, good. It's not a place just to get pictures and stuff. But they didn't want pictures because they'd get in trouble because we didn't pay. Right?
Yeah.
These people, they have bottle feeding sessions for black bears. You can bottle feed a black bear. And it's going to cost you money.
Okay.
But you get video and pictures of you, and you get to say you bottle fed a baby black bear. As a result, these black bears are not weaned early enough. By a lot, right?
Wow.
I'm sure the same thing went on with Joe Exotic, with the Tiger King, and as it does in many other places around the country. But they only keep at, this is what I think I'm quoting from the book.
So the book is talking about Bear World.
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. The book is talking about Yellowstone Bear World very specifically. And in the context of, it's about the same as the Joe Exotic situation, right? Behind the scenes, sure, you can drive there with your friends, you can drive there with your kids, and you can crack the window and you can throw bread out the window, and nobody's ever attacked there, right? I've never heard.
I don't recall.
But because they're always full, right? They know they're going to get calories. They know they're going to get fed. So
don't be that unlucky person when the apocalypse hit to be the first person to go through just because you can, because it's free now.
Right.
You don't want to be that person.
If I got a sister sitting next to me in the back seat. Mom and Dad are driving through Bear World. My sister's freaked out by bears. My window's coming down all the way. Okay, I'm a brother. That's my job.
Yeah.
I want to make her think the bear can get to her. So it was bad. And then he went into the Island Park area and he talked about poaching. There's a big shoot, shovel, and shut up campaign on grizzly bears, as well as wolves.
Yeah, we talked about this before on wolves.
And I wasn't surprised to hear it about wolves,
Right.
but I'm very surprised to hear it about grizzly bears.
But I am, but I'm not, kind of. I'm saddened, but not surprised, because if it's happening somewhere, it's in one way, it's going to be happening in other ways.
Well, it happened 3 times in 6 weeks. So many times that the New York Times came out and did a big piece on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if they caught the guy because that's where I'm at in the book. So
Okay.
to be continued on that point.
Interesting.
But it's a great look at the bear situation. Because I have seen grizzly bears in the wild, in the headlights of my truck, in Yellowstone.
Yeah, you've seen grizzlies with Jared.
Yeah, 4 grizzlies.
Yeah.
Well, a cow and 3 subs. Three subs. A sow and 3 cubs.
Some grizzlies.
A cub and 3 sows. What did I say? A
A
sub and 3 cows.
Yeah.
A sub and 3 cows. Wow.
cow and 3. I don't know.
A sow and 3 cubs that were all huddled so tightly together, it looked like one grizzly bear.
Oof,
It took me a minute to like, what is happening here? Until some of those cubs broke free from mom. They were obviously new from that year.
Gotcha.
Anyway, and so I've seen grizzlies, of course, in zoos, which is kind of depressing. Zoos are kind of depressing.
You know, there's a zoo in Pocatello
Yeah.
that my understanding, but the thing about the zoo in Pocatello, Idaho, is that it has animals from where you can go to the mountains and see them out in the mountains. Like you can see a buffalo, you can see an elk, you can see a
Right.
bear. So they're natural to Idaho.
Right.
But I believe that part of the premise of the zoo is to facilitate animals that might have gotten injured. And so they weren't going to survive anyway because they're too. So
Yes.
they kind of just let them rehabilitate and live out their life, and they can use it as educational.
Right.
And I think it's
Right.
got a connection to the Idaho Fish and Game Department.
There was a place like that in Helena.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was.
a little tiny place, but they had bear cubs and they had
I
all
remember
kinds
going
of.
and smelling how stinky they were.
I love the smell.
and
of
it was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
growing up.
yeah.
So
So bears are pigs. They're disgusting.
But where was I going with that?
Ooh, Bart the bear. They talked. They
Oh,
talked
yeah.
about.
Finish that thread.
They just talked about when he's on a movie set. You know, when a band goes to do a show, they have a writer on their contract. It says, "Hey,
Yes.
you need to provide, strawberry Pop-Tarts for everybody." And
Yeah.
this, Bart the bear had like 6 rotisserie chickens a day, like 9 cans of Hawaiian fruit punch, and like he had this big rider. And of course, he was a very happy bear
Well, yeah,
with that many calories.
I would say.
I would be too. Anyway, I thought that was funny that when a bear has a contract to work in movies, the bear can also have a writer.
It makes sense.
It's funny. Yeah, it's good.
I'm sure he's not the only animal with that.
I'm sure.
So, bear world, indifferent towards in my world, but bears are plentiful. Black bears come
Yeah.
up constantly on our podcast.
Yeah.
Not just bear world in your book.
And we saw 2 in the same day this hunting season.
They were 2 very different creatures.
Yeah.
Big cinnamon and then big black.
Yeah, and then jet black.
Jet black, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just is incredible. And they looked big.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
was-
they did. They looked healthy. They looked very good.
and they climbed up those hills like nothing. We hiked up we didn't hike up after them, but we hiked up on their trajectory.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh my gosh. And they move around. I would not survive against these bears if they were more vicious.
Yeah.
But there's lots of bears everywhere. Here in Idaho, we're seeing more and more as we go out here in Idaho. But in Florida, it's almost as if they're on holiday. There's so many of them in a small area. Do you remember what the number was?
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory on Florida black bears. A long time ago, Ron Howard was on the #1 TV show called at the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah, yep.
His brother
Opie.
was on the #2 show called Gentle Ben,
Oh, that's right.
about a little boy who befriended a black bear in Florida.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I have heard this because that was Clint Howard.
Yeah,
right?
it was Clint Howard. Yeah. So, and I'm sure I've told that story before. I think that's pretty fascinating, and I like the Howards. But yeah, when you think about bears, you think about the West, you think about wide open spaces, and you don't think Gentle Ben, a black bear in Florida,
Yeah.
right? But that was the reality of that show, Gentle Ben. Anyway, and then there's this guy walking down a trail in Florida. You can see the palm trees, but it
Yeah.
also says, "Hey, watch out! There's some dangerous animals here. There's alligators, right? There's snakes, and there are 4,050 black bears
4,000 plus black bears.
just in this one area."
Yeah, that's crazy.
So very fascinating. Definitely a lot of bears.
Yeah. Bears hibernate.
They kind of do.
So, and I was just using that as the old cliche.
Yeah, okay, good.
Not as a literal, hey, I believe. No, I was just trying to find a haphazard segue to say that it snowed in Utah, and that was horrible. Because bears, I always associate when it snows, that's when bears are hibernating, so to speak. That's what we learned growing. Anyway, so let me retract and redact that joke because it just fell horribly flat, and it really had no connection. Let's just let it snow in Utah. But how much did we let it snow?
500 inches.
And that's this year.
It was a single event.
Just this fall. A single event. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. You see all the snow in Pennsylvania from the lake effect?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if this is lake effect from the Great Salt Lake.
The Great Salt Lake has been shrinking.
Well, yeah, but it's still a great lake.
How great can it be? I'm just kidding.
It's all salty. It really kind of sucks. I wouldn't call it great.
Don't drink the water.
But there's different climate conditions, but you have the Great Salt Lake evaporating, and then you have the Wasatch and Rocky Mountains to go over.
Those are steep.
Whatever, right? You have the lake effect snow in the east, but there's no real mountains to go over, right? It evaporates and there's
just kind of
a few thousand feet maybe.
But yeah, so it's dumped on those mountains in Utah, and it's crazy. I just drove down there in October. To a concert, and it was I remember because I was a passenger, so I get to gawk at the scenery, and I like being a passenger on long road trips because of that. And so but looking at that Wasatch Front, geez, every time
there's snow.
I love the mountains. I love the mountains I was raised in. I love the Idaho mountains that I grew up in. But that Wasatch Front is intimidating.
It is.
It does not look friendly for hiking, and people love to recreate on them. I get it, but I'm just like,
really?
It just looks.
I've never seen a mountain I didn't want to hike to the top of, and the Wasatch is definitely on that list. To walk one of those ridges.
Well, if
are you kidding me?
That, I guess it just
calls to you.
I wouldn't want it to be a constant, so I wouldn't want to live there because I like the fluctuations of terrain here versus what it appears to me. Now, people in Utah are going to, all of our many, many listeners in Utah are going to be like, Chambers, you don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't. And it's probably much different than I perceive. And I get it. And I should keep an open mind like my brother and maybe just go hike down there. So
I've never been hiking there.
We had a family reunion there one time where Aunt Glenna and her husband had some property up in the hills.
Oh, really?
Up in a canyonous area.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think you're supposed to do it, but
I don't recall.
There was a big wash, and I don't think you were with us.
Okay.
This was like 1992 or 1993. It was.
Oh, okay.
I was still pretty young. And so they were supposedly going to build a cabin up there, and I think there was a zip line somewhere too on this property. It was simple, cheesy zip line. And so we just spent the day up there eating lunch and hiking around, and you go to the cliff edge and you could find a big flat rock and throw it over and hear it kaboom when it hit.
Oh, that's fun.
It was also dangerous.
Yes,
because you could throw yourself over, but that's what kids do apparently out there. But that was early 90s at a family reunion.
Wow.
But I don't think they ever got to the property to actually finish the cabin.
Those Wasatch are steep, rugged, rocky, tough-looking mountains. They're very intimidating, for sure.
It was fun, though. What do we do on the roads when it snows?
We salt them.
We do, and
we salt them, and salt is cheap out here. They literally just load trucks of salt from the Bonneville Salt Flat down in Utah, just outside the Great Salt Lake, and just dump it on the roads.
Yeah, and so coincidentally, we were looking at vehicles at one point, and one of the dealerships here in town got a new trade from the Salt Lake area.
Yeah.
So we went and test drove it. It was actually a so we had a Jeep Liberty at the time. It was actually a newer version of the Jeep Liberty, and we wanted to see if the new model of the Jeep Liberties were bigger inside because they appeared to be bigger. And so it actually was. So we took this Jeep on a test drive, drove it out by the Flying J in Jerome, parked at not the Flying J, but the one across the road from it. And I got out with a flashlight and I looked underneath the bottom of this truck or this Jeep,
The undercarriage.
and it was nothing but rust. And some places were so rusty, it almost like the oil pan had so much rust buildup on it. It looked like you could actually poke your finger through part of the pan. And so we were like kind of taken in by this vehicle. We were swooned by it. But when I saw that, we're just driving it back to the dealership.
Yeah, it all goes away.
And so that was right before we got our Traverse. But I got back to the dealership, and the person we actually knew personally, he said, "What'd you think?" I go, "That thing has cancer on the bottom of it. There's no way. There's no way. It's just too rusty."
Yeah.
I was way too blunt.
So salt. Lots of salt. It
So the
sprays
whole
up.
point.
It sticks to your vehicle. It covers your vehicle. You can see it. You can see it. Sometimes you get so much mud and stuff on your vehicle, and then it like rains a little bit, and the mud washes off. You can still see the salt.
Yeah.
It's dry to it.
And it's very detrimental to paint and metals particularly. So that was the whole point. I didn't mean to go on that longer rant, but
That's okay. We've talked about mineralization being a very precious resource when you get high in the mountains. The water just doesn't have time to accumulate the mineralization, and animals are very desperate for salt. I know I talked about Jim Bridger had a goiter.
Yeah.
Jim, you know what a goiter is?
No.
A goiter is a lack of iodine, which is typically found in salt, but a goiter is like a large lump on your neck, and it's from not having enough mineralization. A lot of the Native American tribes called Jim Bridger Big Neck.
Yeah. Okay. But animals not having enough salt.
It's a precious resource.
So if you're driving around on roads, like say in the Salt Lake area, and you drive up to the mountains, or you drive somewhere that has a lot of wildlife,
a lot of snowfall. Just a lot of snowfall, right?
Well, that's if you use salt on the roads in that region.
Right.
That's the point.
And they do. Everybody does. We use it. We use it here all the time. In fact, before a snowstorm, they pre-salt the roads.
That's salt?
Have you ever seen it? It's a brine. So it's a brine mixture, and they mix the salt with water to make a brine, and they spray it out. And so when the snow falls,
I thought it was not salt. I thought it was just a chemical. But
no, it's salt. It is a chemical. I mean, but it's salt water.
I actually have no idea.
So that they spray it out. They spray it. They pre-spray so that when the snow falls, there's like a little layer between the snow accumulation, so that when the plow comes, it better cleans the street.
I gotcha.
Right. And
I didn't know that about that. I have learned something new today. Thank you. I always wondered why pre-spray. It doesn't seem like it's enough to melt the snow that will fall on it. But now
it helps clear it up once the plows come along. Okay. So it's an important process, and you always know out west if there's a storm coming when you see the pre-sprayed streets. You're like, gear up.
They're anticipating. Yeah,
and
I just filled sandbags for the truck because I have some leftover sand from projects over the summer. So I bought some empty bags, and I filled them up. So if you want a couple sandbags, let me know.
I should find something because my rear end is light.
I've got 10 of them.
Okay.
I got 10 bags for $10, and then I filled them up with sand. So
yeah, right on.
Just let me know.
So anyways, what amazes me about this story is this guy parks his car and goes for a hike in Yellowstone, and it is November, December, right? There's not a lot of snow. It might be October, I don't know. But it had snowed, his car was covered in salt. The buffalo can smell the salt. They can smell it. And he's trapped outside of his vehicle for more than an hour because 5 buffalo are licking his van clean.
Yeah. I guess in a way that's going to help the resale value.
Man, it will. It will. Could you get the undercarriage though?
Yeah,
that's where all the exposed steel is.
Right.
it's gonna rot. So I thought that story is a great display of how precious minerals are.
Yeah.
And how good the noses of wild animals are.
It's amazing.
They came in for the salt. I mean, it's not like you park in a parking lot. The bison aren't there. There's nothing to eat in the parking lot. But they came to the parking lot for the salt. That fascinates me.
It almost makes me wonder, like, you drive down the road, there's somewhere you don't see them, but because the fragrance of the vehicle passes by, and even though you have exhaust, they can smell the salt. Yeah. And they start going, and then somehow, just coincidentally, he stops at a place where it was proximal to where they smelled him go by. I don't know. I'm making it up, but it seems seems logical, I guess.
Crazy, right? Yeah. Even if you just park there and the breeze just carries the scent of salt. Mm-hmm. It's fat. I can't smell salt. but I know what it would smell like if I could.
Hey, you smell that?
Right? Right? Maybe if I went to the Bonneville
smell
Salt
something?
Flats and maybe I could smell salt.
I
then.
wonder. Now I'm kind of wondering.
But I know what salt tastes like. Our taste, like 80% of our taste buds are what our nose uses.
Yeah.
Right? Our chemical receptors. Right? So we know what salt smells like because we know what it tastes like. But I don't think I've ever smelled salt.
Yeah. Hold on. I'll be right back.
And what's the other one? After you're like 2 years old, you know what everything in everybody's backyard tastes like.
Yeah.
If you look at something, just go, I know what that tastes like.
Yep. Lots of iron in that one.
Yeah. So anyway.
Iron helps us play. So that's pretty cool. I came across a really cool headline yesterday about some elk. And so we've talked about different types of elk.
Yeah.
There's the Roosevelt elk. There's the Rocky Mountain elk.
Yeah.
Do you know any other?
The European red deer. So we've talked about a subspecies of elk in Mongolia.
But
Right?
So let's keep the conversation though just to the different subspecies here in North America.
Okay.
Right.
All I know is the Rocky Mountain elk and the Roosevelt.
Well, in California, there's an elk breed that's been on the Point Reyes National Seashore, and they roam. I don't know if I captured the right. I didn't get how much land they're on, but they're fenced in on this preserve.
Yeah.
In California. This particular type of elk was almost hunted to extinction in 1800s because of hunting and habitat loss. But as we get better about conservation and understanding needs, of course, since whenever this preserve was put in 50 years ago is how long they've been on this preserve, isolated and fenced in.
Yeah.
They're going to tear this fence down, but these were called Tule elk or Tule elk.
Okay,
Tule.
that sounds familiar.
Tule elk.
Yeah.
And so they're actually
that does sound familiar.
they're considered the smallest elk species in North America, which I thought the Roosevelt elk had been considered that because they were supposedly supposed to be small. But these a young male adult will get about average between 450 and 700 pounds.
Okay.
And 315 elk live in this place called the Tamales Point area of the park, and so they want to give them an opportunity to get out of this enclosure,
expand their range,
to get back to more natural living. So I just thought that was a cool story. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah, I think somewhere I've heard of Tule elk before.
Yeah, we might have talked about it before on the podcast.
But that's good. That's good. It adds data.
Yeah, just one more data point. So there's a lot. I love it when you can have a diversity of a species.
Yeah, it's important.
So,
it's really important.
So good luck, elk, and they've been doing well for 50 years. They just need to be able to be more free.
Right.
So, but we elk hunt because archery elk hunting is
the greatest outdoor sport in North America,
and we do it because of the free meat.
Free. That's what's great about it.
It's free. You just get a tag.
Get a tag. What's a tag cost?
Get a bow
in Idaho,
and arrow.
if you're a resident, $20, $25, $35. What is it? I don't even know. See, that's how cheap it is. It's free.
Yeah. You don't have to go to the store to buy the meat. It's free.
Yeah.
So you showed me a really fascinating TikTok, I think it was, on a very noble effort to calculate the actual cost of the free meat being put in the freezer.
It was an honest effort. It was a clean, honest effort.
Yes,
yeah.
It was a good, noble effort.
Yeah.
We agreed to disagree. Why?
Well, so she only took the cost of butchering and the cost of the tag. That was all. She and the cost of the tag and the cost of the butchering, they were like $3.50, give or take.
A pound. That's reasonable.
It's great. Yeah. But I would pay it. I think I told you I'd pay $30 a pound if it was a nice elk. Right? Yeah. But I felt it was a little dishonest because I don't know how far he's traveling, how much time he spent away, right? What kind of gear. There's a gear expense, there's a food expense, there's a gas expense.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more there
than meets the eye.
Yeah. And if I was to get one deer a season and spend the money I do, it's not worth calculating.
Right.
It's $15, $20 a pound if I harvested.
Yeah. Exactly.
if.
Correct. If you harvest. So, but with all due respect, it is at least nice to get your head wrapped around what it should be.
Yeah. No, it was nice to have that effort because I know.
We talk about it.
Right, we talk about it all the time.
Somebody actually did it, so they got one up on us.
And I bet I'll find more people doing price per pound. But they live back east, right? The hanging dead weight of the deer was less than 100 pounds.
Yeah, but so here's what's interesting. And I don't mean, this is just an observation I made about the video. They calculated the hanging deer weight lower than the actual weight they got back, which means they added a bunch of meat to it and other stuff. So like the fat content and
No, I think it was like I think it was 115 hanging dead weight and then like 85 pounds of meat.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
I don't know. We can watch it again.
It seemed backwards, and maybe I misheard. So that would be on me.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a good podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will definitely read more, listen to more of Grizzly Confidential. I'm liking it so far. He's talking about the poaching in eastern Idaho. So he's talking about home. He's talking about where we are.
Pretty close.
Yeah. And he's talked about the Bob Marshall, and he's talked about Glacier, and he's going to talk about the Bitterroots. And so
more to come.
More to come. And no podcast next week.
Yeah,
what's the week after? Are we to Christmas already?
No, that's the week before Christmas.
Okay. So we'll get one more in this year before Christmas.
Yeah, and I think that's it.
Okay, in 2 weeks.
Our finale season.
Okay.
Season
Episode
finale.
30, that's pretty good. We get 30 a year. That's right in the zone.
Right on.
Okay. See you in a couple weeks.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
In the morning light, before dawn, bow grip tight, heart beating strong. Through the forest, ancient giants roam, in the land where the wild calls me home. Through the whispering pines and the autumn breeze, driven by the chase, crisp air I breathe. With every step I take, earth beneath my feet. In nature's beauty where the hunter and elk meet. The mountains rise, kissed by the sun. In September, where I belong. Bugles echo loudly through the veil, a symphony of an ancient tale. Through the whispering pines and the autumn breeze, driven by the chase, crisp air I breathe. With every step I take, earth beneath my feet. In nature's beauty where the hunter and elk meet. Silent as the morning mist, I travel on with careful grace. Every shadow, every sound surrounds me in this wild embrace. The challenge and the thrill, the patience and the skill, in the dance of life and nature, my heart's forever filled. As the sun sets, shadows long and deep, I find my place with the memories I keep. The chase and the beauty of a day gone by. Deep in the mountains, my spirit cries. Through the whispering pines and the autumn breeze, driven by the chase, crisp air I breathe. With every step I take, earth beneath my feet. In nature's beauty, out where the hunter and elk meet. Here's to the wild places place that I call home. In the stillness of the forest, in the grandeur of the land, I am one with nature's wonder, with my bow here in my hand.